Good morning to you. Lewis Oakley joins me this morning. We're just looking through the front pages. We've been talking about these two stories. First of all, the middle classes support VAT on private schools, according to Bridget Phillipson. Really? News to me. Families face £8,000 New Year tax rate. This is the Sunday Telegraph. All joy, things to look forward to in the new year. This is rather a brilliant story. This is the front page of the Mail. Let me just show you that this morning. This is the story that's been running for the last few days. Kemi's fury at TV chiefs favouring Nigel Farage. So this feud has been going on for a long time between Farage and Badenoch. She says, oh, this is an automated counter. We talked at length about it. And of course it isn't. It comes off something called Nation Builder, which I know very well, where you put in people's voting intention. We know everything about the makeup of that house and how they're going to vote and all the rest of it. So the Tory leader apparently accused GB News, another broadcaster, of giving too much of a platform to her critics. Fine, but she then raises the spectre of regulatory action. Apparently, she called in the chief exec of GB News. This is Angelos Frangopoulos. He was called into Westminster before Christmas for a chat with Badenoch, and she made it clear that any network, including this one, should not be a haven for critics of Kemi Badenoch.
Yeah, this is really quite interesting. I mean, first of all, God bless Kemi, because usually this period between Christmas and New Year is quite quiet, and she has kept us, you know, fed with things to talk about. This is quite interesting because I don't like... It's a very interesting space at the moment where you have got MPs fronting their own shows, and, well, is that bias, and where is the Ofcom line on this? The way that it's definitely being represented, that she looks at it, is that, well, shut down my critics. Would be the worry there. I think the reality is Kemi needs to get on board, if that makes sense. We are in a brave new world now. She cannot play politics like it's the 1980s or whatever it is. She should have her own podcast already. Because the thing is now, we live in such an uncertain world, you don't know what's going to happen. You can have policies all you want, but people like to get to know the person. They like to get to know their character, their principles. And so people can do that if someone's fronting their own show or has their own podcast. It's not really for her to come in and say, oh, you're favouring one or the other. And GB News have already responded and said, well, we've invited you on. Come and defend your points.
Well, I mean...
and she hasn't.
Well, and also she made a glaring error by saying that count was automated. And, of course, Elon Musk and Twitter has now put an advisory on it saying this isn't true. It does come off Nation Builder. We know that because it's been corroborated by all the mainstream media as well. I made this point yesterday. She says, I haven't got policy because I'm thinking those policies through and then I will come out with them. The problem is that that's created a void. The other thing, there's an interview I saw where she says, I'm never wrong. That's a terrible, terrible thing to say, even if you think you're right.
Yeah, a couple of interesting points there. So, on her thing about I don't have policies yet, I actually, you know, in principle, sort of agree with that. Okay, well, you know, come together after your horrible defeat, come up... but hold on. But I think the problem is people don't want you to kind of come up with policies now. They want sort of, and I think this is probably the appeal of the sort of reform thing, is they want you to have a very clear idea of how you think things should be run. It's kind of the thing that was pointed at Margaret Thatcher in that sense of like, there was no question mark about what she was going to do. Like, she couldn't stop talking about it. So whilst I like the idea of a democracy and you're the leader of the party, get everyone's thoughts and feelings, and then put them together and say, do we agree on this? Yes, we're all united, fine. Because they've had a very divided party. So in principle, I agree with that. But at the same time, yes, you are missing that whole... This is my vision for the country. I love it. I can't stop talking about it. I can't stop shouting down people that have a different vision, and this is it, and I'm bringing you with me. And we're not getting that from her. We're just getting silly arguments where, and as I said before, it's thinking one step ahead. What was she thinking when she put out that tweet? Of course Nigel Farage was going to come back with something. Yeah. Of course they were going to be able to prove it. Why did you have to put that out? And if you did have to put it out, why not get an underling or someone else to make the claim so that you could come in afterwards and deliver the kill shot? It was just, there's no thinking then.
Do you think the problem is the Conservative Party actually don't know what it is to be Conservative?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that was kind of the whole problem. That's why they're out of office, isn't it? They kind of, you know, said we were Conservative and they weren't being Conservative, so the voters turned on them.
I mean, it's interesting because Kemi Badenoch says that Reform doesn't have any policies.
Well, you've got your 10 rules or something like that. You put out a bit of a pamphlet. I mean, I can't say I've read it. I've got to be honest.
I mean, but in many ways they are very conservative, which is slash the size of the state. Essentially, what you want to do is to cut tax. I think there's enormous benefit in flat taxation. So the fact is that those people who work harder will benefit more from that. There are lots of things that we could do. Scrap bureaucracy in the NHS, for example. These really are mainstream conservative policies. And as you come in to become the leader, surely there must be something that drives you as Conservative leader.
There must be, but it's weird. If you think that the reformers may be stolen Kemi's breakfast in that sense of, well, they've gone first, and if she comes out of anything that Reform have already said, they're going to say, well, that was our idea. So she's kind of got to reimagine what it is to be Conservative. I don't know. Maybe she'll be a bit more inspired by whatever happens in America and, look at some of those policies. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's what the British people want.
I mean, I asked this yesterday. Do you think we're seeing the end of the Conservative Party in its current form?
Yeah, I hope we're seeing the end of politics in its current form. This doesn't work anymore. This system that we've had for hundreds of years does not work. People are not feeling represented. You've got a bunch of elites here in Westminster.
Would you have proportional representation?
Oh, I would go much further. I'm much more radical. I would have an app or some sort of yearly referendum so that the people can vote on stuff. The politicians can come up with the options and then put things to the people. Because we're living in a country no one agrees with anymore. We have policies no one agrees with.
No, I'm just thinking it through. I mean, it's really fascinating. But then you have government by referenda. I'm not necessarily sure that's a great idea. I have to go to a break. There's Demetrius. Good morning, Dr. Bull from Cyprus. My husband and I love your show. Thanks ever so much. If you're ever in Cyprus, you must pop round for dinner. OK, I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for that. Lots of others. Good morning, David. This is Doug saying Starmer has arrived now in Madeira. Help. That's from Doug, who I assume is in Madeira. Also, right at the beginning of the programme, I mentioned in the facts about coffee shops being closed because they were hotbeds of gossip. Good morning. Yes, David, the government closed the coffee houses to stop the apprentices conspiring. Today, Starmer is closing the pubs for the very same reason. He is afraid. That's Mick in Wallington, one of our regulars. Good morning to you. Keep all of those coming in, please. I'm asking this morning, if there was a general election, this is based on the mega poll, which is in one of the papers this morning. If there was a general election today, who would win and why? The number 0344 499 1000, calls charged at the national rate. Let me just bring you some breaking news now. 120 people are now confirmed dead after a plane crashed on landing at Muan Airport in South Korea. That was a Boeing 737-800 operated by an airline called Jeju Air. There were 181 passengers on board and was arriving at Muan Airport. You're seeing pictures here. It is an extraordinary sight as to what happens. The footage online appears to show the plane coming off the runway and then crashing into a wall. It then burst into flames and no cause has so far been confirmed. The fire service there is reporting a collision with birds and poor weather may be to blame. So there we are, 120 people now confirmed dead after a plane crashed on landing at Muan Airport in South Korea. Now, interestingly, South Korea has quite a good flight safety track record. So obviously they're looking into the causes of that devastating plane crash. Let's look at the front pages now. If you are just joining us, the Sunday Times. Let's start there, shall we? Lewis Oakley and I have been talking about this story. The middle classes apparently support VAT on private schools. I don't believe that for 1 minute. The Education Secretary has said middle-class parents support her policy of imposing VAT of 20% on private schools. She said, this is the bit I really don't understand. She said she would be the voice of pushy middle-class parents who've been priced out of sending their children to private schools and would demand better from state schools. You're pricing them out, and now you're going to be the voice of the middle-class pushy parents who deliberately decided to send their children to a private school. Well, that makes no sense either. And, of course, she goes on to say the middle-class parents have been largely priced out of private schools by you, and it's why there's such support for our policy of ending the tax breaks that private schools enjoy to invest in state education. It's worth just pointing out, It's believed that the 500,000 kids or thereabout that go to private school save the state about £4.5 billion. Labour's policy will give a revenue of £1.5 billion. The thing they haven't factored in is the sheer numbers of kids who are leaving the independent sector to go to state schools, and there aren't the places. But they haven't worked that out. As Lewis says, that it seems there is no kind of long-term thought here. Let's also just look at... oh, by the way, on the Sunday Times, there's a byline here. Farage could take 67 seats from Labour. This is the mega poll I'm talking about. Reform would take 67 parliamentary seats from Labour. If there was an election held today, that's why I'm asking, if it was held today, who would win and why? And who would you vote for? Also, the Sunday Telegraph this morning. Families face an £8,000 New Year tax raid. Middle-class families face an £8,000 increase in their tax bills in 2025. This is analysis by The Telegraph. Of course, the raft of Labour tax rises coming into effect next year, forcing households to pay thousands more from the children's education, council tax, the £40 billion tax increase by Rachel Reeves. Of course, we've also heard from Rachel Reeves saying she can't rule out further tax increases as well. The IFS, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, warned that the tax burden is now rising to levels we have never seen in this country before. This is Andrew Griffith, the Shadow Business Secretary, said Labour's policy so far has led to one of the biggest transfers from the aspirant class to the public sector that anyone has ever seen. Also, the byline on that one, Musk slaps fake label on Badenoch's online post. This is her about the automated, saying that Reform's counter was automated. It wasn't. It was linked to Nation Builder and actually was real-time sign-ups of people to Reform UK. The front page of the Mail this morning, Kemi's fury at TV chiefs favouring Nigel Farage. We talked about this as well. Kemi Badenoch very unhappy, saying that various news outlets, including GB News, is giving far too much time to Nigel Farage, and she threatens regulatory action as a result. Make of that what you will. The Observer front page this morning has the same story we did yesterday, or we saw yesterday. I think it was in The Independent. Patients at risk as NHS urgent repair costs triple in a decade. It says a decade-long failure to address urgent repairs in hospitals across England has led to a dramatic rise in issues, posing a high risk to patients and staff. The cost has tripled since 2015 in real terms to £2.7 billion this year. Huge numbers of maintenance issues. The NHS lost more than 600 days or 14,500 hours worth of clinical time because of infrastructure failures in the last year. The total maintenance backlog has now ballooned to £13.8 billion. That's up 18% from last year. The front page of the Sunday Express this morning, UK's £4 million pledge to find Putin's cruel war criminals. Survivors of Russia's war crimes in Ukraine one step closer in their quest for justice. There's a £4.5 million pledge to help prosecutors hunt down the soldiers and commanders responsible for unspeakable atrocities since Putin launched his illegal invasion almost 3 years ago. The Sun on Sunday has a bit of a U-turn here. Apprentice stars in hotel romp, Lewis. A new apprentice contestant was found half naked, or with a half-naked rival, in a hotel room during filming. This is Amber Rose Badruddin, who is 24 and an unnamed fella, spelled F-E-L-L-A. Broke strict no-touching rules whilst in Turkey for Lord Alan Sugar's new BBC series. A source said they were read the Riot Act.
Why was she named and the fella not?
Good point. Turn to pages 4 and 5. I will.
Why should she be on maths?
Well, hang on a minute. Oh, she wrote a love letter to a male contestant who was undressed in her hotel room. She split from her boyfriend as well for 4 years. That was the boyfriend for 4 years.
Oh.
Yeah. She told fans she'd broken up with her business partner, Michael Nguyen, but failed to admit why she was spotted with her show rival through a window.
Oh, that tension, that rivalry. Good for her.
Wow. Sunday People. Corrie Legend, an exclusive. This is the star Charlie. Do you watch Corrie?
No, I was going to give it a sympathy watch at Christmas, but I just never got around to it. And apparently it didn't even make the top 10 of Christmas
didn't it?
watches, didn't it?
Do you know I've never seen it?
Oh,
Never.
Not even in the 90s?
Not once.
Oh, you don't understand when Deirdre went down and she was innocent. Oh, I remember that.
Do you?
Probably one of my first
memories. This is the front page this morning. I did heroin and I had wild nights out with Katie. Page 5. Charlie Lawson has boasted of his wild nights out with Katie Price as he took any drugs he could get his hands on. He talks of his hell-raising lifestyle. He drank over a bottle of whiskey a night, took cocaine, ecstasy, LSD, speed and cannabis.
Well, he can't go on holiday in the US now, he's admitted that.
Well, I was about to say that's a very interesting admission, isn't it? Because also, what does that mean in terms of his legal status? And you rightly point out the US would take a very dim view of that, Prince Harry.
Let's not go there.
I
walked into that one, didn't I?
You did walk into that one. The Mirror. Oh, this is a lovely story. The best Christmas present ever. Two mums have met after one donated her beloved daughter's heart to save the other's little girl. This is Amy Anderson. She heard Mia's heartbeat and graced Westwood, aged 5, and said it was so special. Gosh, I don't know how people do that. I mean, it's an amazing thing to do, so altruistic.
It's one of those, I wouldn't be able to read that whole story. It made me cry. Like, genuinely, it's amazing what we can do with, you know, as much as we talk about the NHS and the state it's in, you know, when you hear stories like that and what we do with transplants now, it is amazing the life that we can give people, especially young kids.
I agree. Grace is alive thanks to Amy's parents' decision to donate the heart of their 10-year-old daughter, Mia Hicks. Wow. And the Daily Star. This is actually quite a big story, but they've done it in their own unique and special way. Rise of killer robot fridges. Now, there's a warning that the humble fridge could lead to a Terminator-style robot takeover of the world. It's enough to leave you feeling cold.
I don't like this. I don't like this fear-mongering about AI.
But it's also true. The Internet of Things, everything is talking to each other. It's all watching you. Your fridge has got a camera in it. My Alexa knows what I want. She keeps telling me that, oh, have you looked at this? You need to be doing that. And this is the father of AI has warned, and we'll talk about it in Tech Rundown, actually, with Davis later on this morning. When's that? At 7:20. We'll talk about that. Because the father of AI is saying it's progressing at such a rate, he's frightened by it.
Yeah, we have to keep a sceptical eye on it, but we also have to make sure that we control the technology and we decide what we want it to do and what we don't want it to do. We can't just let it sort of like, oh, it's just going about its own thing and that's what it'll do. We need to say, look,
have you watched Doctor Who? This is exactly what happened.
But if you watch Star Trek, this is why I'm not worried about it. So they have AI computers and it all works fine. It's like that's what we need to sort of be aiming for.
You know that's fiction, don't you? Star Trek.
Well, it's becoming rapidly not.
Yeah, well, that's also true. I mean, so and let me just tell you that story. Geoffrey Hinton said humans will be like toddlers compared with the intelligence of highly powered AI systems. The godfather of AI said that AI could wipe out humanity over the next 3 decades, warning the pace of change is much faster than expected.
I actually rewatched iRobot whilst I was on my sick bed over Christmas. Look, I think we have to be cautious about it. If the robots try and kill us, we'll probably take them out before they take us out. Then we'll reprogram them and go again.
All right, if you say so.